What's a crazy / messed up thing that society has mostly normalized? How being the most busy, most stressed out, most unhappy is a badge of honor. Conversation example. Person 1, man, I've been so busy lately. Person 2, oh no, you don't even want to know how busy I've been. I've been sleeping 3 hours a night to reach this deadline. Person 1, oh yay, I've been murdering small children to meet my deadline. Person 2, you have no fucking idea what busy is. I've been stabbing the elderly and stealing their retirement money to reach my deadline. Person 1, son of a bee, you have no clue what busy is and here's why. We get it. You're busy. Tell me about something you actually like. Corporate loyalty. Their prerogative is to give you as little as they can to make you work the most. How people feel guilty about abandoning their jobs for other ones that pay more is beyond me. Higher education in the US has shifted focus over the past few decades. Colleges today are mainly just an ecosystem for investors and profiteers to exploit. Student loans, construction projects, government grants, layers of useless administration. The actual faculty are being replaced with underpaid associate and adjunct professors, and even with clueless grad students. Top faculty are encouraged to spend their time on money-making research, not teaching. The US has been fighting since 2001. There are kids joining the army right now who were born after 9/11. Barely. We seem to have just accepted that we'll always be at war. There are people, right this second, fighting, killing, and dying halfway across the world, and for most Americans, we don't give it a second a thought. It's unbelievable. Becoming obsessed with social media, both looking through it and uploading to it. People have a need to make themselves look like they are living on top of the world for their followers, and people think negatively of themselves when they see people who they think are having better lives than them. And I don't count Reddit as social media. I don't know anyone on here in real life. I know people who have accounts, but we don't know the other's username. I don't browse people's profiles. I just use it to discuss things I like with random, anonymous people online. Keeping people alive well after their time. It is painful for both the person and the family. It's crazy how we put down animals, but let humans suffer and die a slow, painful, and ugly death. Wine mom culture really annoys me. Why are you so eager to admit that you dislike having your own children to the point where you need to be a borderline alcoholic to tolerate them? The customer is always right mentality. 1. No, they're not. 2. That is not an excuse to treat a minimum wage person like garbage because you think you're special. Again, you're not. See number 1. Polarized politics. The idea of, you're either with me against me, and we can't be friends if you're against me. Or if you're mostly a liberal / conservative, but hold one conservative / liberal viewpoint, you're not on my side, get out. Or any compromise is a sign of weakness. And of course any call for order, or calling of hypocrisy gets a /enlightened centrism comment. Saying that obese people are unhealthy is insensitive, fat shaming, and extremely judgmental, and you're a shit human for doing so. As a medical professional, no, I'm not insensitive. You're actually going to die if you don't improve your lifestyle soon. Not planning ahead. With smartphones, people just think we can always text or look things up last minute, but you are fucked if you end up losing your phone or having no signal or your battery dies. You need to still have things planned out ahead of time. Homelessness is just accepted. I spent years homeless and no one gives a fuck. If someone tries to open a homeless shelter, you get a bunch of NIMBY types who show up and start screaming. Want to start a company with outreach to help homeless people get off the street? No one will donate. Want to try and get more public housing? People whine about how their roads have potholes, but they are taking care of homeless people who are fucking human. Most of us have been forced into the position. It's not a choice and it's not something any of us want. We try to get out, but it's insanely difficult, and after a certain point, you can easily just give up. No one cares about you. You feel unsafe everywhere you go. Feel like a burden, because everyone gives you dirty looks. Feel like you're forever stuck on the street, because the programs that exist aren't even remotely capable of actually helping, mainly because they don't have the resources. Then to top it off, people say just get a job. How? Where am I gonna shower? Transportation? What about simple things like printing off a resume? Libraries charge you for that. No computer or phone, so you're going to have a hell of a time finding anything when you only get to use the library computer for an hour a day. The fact that people just accept it when so much could be done boggles my mind. You don't have to go give a hug to a dude who hasn't showered in weeks, but you should have the common decency to at least acknowledge our existence instead of avoiding eye contact constantly. I got out of homelessness through luck and almost ended up homeless a couple weeks ago. I'm disabled and have a hard time doing anything. Fuck's sake, I can't afford my medication for the next 2 weeks. I'm in agony, having panic attacks and suffering through severe depression. It's still better than being homeless and having people mutter under their breath, or, to your face, wish you were dead. Repeating what everyone else is saying, but working for money. Think about it. Go back in time and work was about survival. We needed food, shelter, safety, community, and that's all the work that there was. Then over time we found more efficient ways to do that, to the point that there's not actually enough work to go round. But this meant we were able to expand, creating the concept of trade and commerce, which needed some way of managing, hence money. But then money meant more access to needs of survival, meaning more power. Fast forward a few thousand years and we create work purely for the sake of creating money. And I'm not talking about wages, I'm talking about people creating production lines so they can make more goods, many of which do not impact survival needs, to make more money. The vast majority of the work out there now purely exists to make someone else money. And yet, your worth is defined by whether or not you own the money or earn your money by contributing to someone else's efforts to make more money. Gone are the days when you could just fend for yourself and suffice your own needs. In fact, you can't have that because the people with the money bought all the land and all the resources, so the only way you can have anything, literally anything even from the surrounding environment, is if you have money. It's fucking stupid. Casually saying you have a mental disorder or some mental illness because you diagnosed yourself while listening to Bart Simpson Vaporwave edits. You don't have an antisocial disorder that cripples you from having normal human interaction. You just don't put in any effort to meet people. The only valid rape/sexual abuse/domestic abuse victims are women. It's disgusting how many male rape victims are blown off with the sentiment of "you got laid, why are you complaining?" or "why didn't you just stop her? You're bigger than her." Tribalism in general. The idea that there is an us and there is a them. That we have to find somebody to hate just for the sake of hating them. That we need another to ostracize. Fuck that noise. There is only us. There is only humanity. We need to look out for one another, protect one another, and nurture one another. We spend our existence as a tiny speck on the span of geological time, and any time spent hating someone else is time thoroughly wasted. As John Donne so eloquently puts it, and therefore do not send for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. Being entirely too passive, or utterly dependent on authority. This is actively encouraged in schools, especially in America, in the form of zero tolerance policy. Some thuggish delinquents are bullying you? Walk away. Tell an adult. Obviously, after you've been abused/mugged. If you dare to physically defend yourself, beyond curling up and taking it, you will be punished for fighting. This is an absolutely terrible policy. Delinquent kids who physically abuse their classmates don't give a shit about being suspended. Half the time, their parents don't care either. All this does is indoctrinate children to believe that using force to defend yourself against abuse is wrong. Feelings over facts. I see a lot of examples of it in this thread. People read fake anecdotes on Reddit or Facebook and take it as their personal gospel, no matter what anyone else tells them or any info they are given. It must suck for someone to exist in what they think is such a small world with so many people out to get them. It must be a real burden to be afraid or angry all the time. Cancel culture. It's the 21st century version of a vigilance committee with all the same drawbacks, just instead of a noose at the end it's being bullied into suicide. I face this as a victim of sexual assault. My attacker was able to gather the support of her fellow students, and they stalk and harass me to this day. Most of my social support have ghosted me, and my life is in shambles, and none of these people acted on credible evidence, because I have gigs upon gigs of recorded meetings, emails, messages, and other conversations, enough to launch 2, possibly 3 federal investigations now, and there's a lot of people who think this is okay, and when confronted with anything contrary to their vitriol they will often respond by saying that they refuse to look at it and say it's wrong for me to use it to defend myself or have evidence at all. It's like we learned nothing as a society about why we have juries that weigh evidence by third parties without vested interests in the outcome. That there is this idea that gender is on a spectrum. At most there are 3 genders, male and female. The third is those rare cases that a child is born with both genitalia, the hermaphrodite. Everything else is a mental disorder, which we've allowed to continue to exist because of people's feelings. Skinny shaming. When a fat person is shamed, everyone protects them. When a skinny person is shamed, everyone remembers short-lived skinny girl trend from 20 years and says that you can't get body shamed. Well, joke's on you. Whole life everyone was shaming me was into abusive relationships where my average ass and petite tits were a problem. I still have a lot of issues from it all, as you can see, especially the fear on not being able to find a person because I have nothing to offer physically. Anyways, just look at yourself. Stop shaming others for their body. You suck if you do. Humans are supposed to be of all shapes, not just what you'd like to shag. Circumcision. It's male genital mutilation, but due to many factors and so much normalization, at least in the US, no one cares. It removes many nerve endings, reduces the ability to self-lubricate, and botched operations can scar people for life. People don't take it seriously because penises are an inherently silly organ, and many men's issues aren't taken seriously just because they are men's issues. The argument that it's cleaner is ridiculous. Anyone can learn to peel back their foreskin and wash under it. I'm uncircumcised and have never had any sort of hygiene issues, not even as a child. The only time it's appropriate to decide to get your child cut is if it's medically necessary. If as an adult, or even a teen I'd argue, you want it done, go for it, but there's no reason to subject huge swaths of the male population to it, just because some people might end up preferring it. Almost any argument in favor of circumcision can be revealed as discrimination by comparing it to female genital mutilation. If you don't care about the pleasure sensors being removed, why would you be against cutting the clit? If you argue in favor of cleanliness, do you also support cutting the labia? Debt/credit. It seriously blows my mind how common this is. I don't have the money, but I want now, so I'll just take out a loan/put it on my credit card. For major purchases like a house I understand, but it's normal to accrue debt for regular small, daily purchases. I've known people to purchase Christmas gifts via a payment plan. Seriously, WTF, if you don't have the money you can't afford it. End of story. Social media influencer culture. These people pose for pictures and create content, and they end up making tons of money off it, also while demanding free stuff in exchange for exposure. It's the new desirable job and it just feeds a social media addiction. The saying don't need to get to a prestigious school to get a good job because, in the end, what matters is not about what school you graduated from, but the connection you have to an important person in the company you seeking for a job is. If you from Southeast Asia, specifically from the south part of Southeast Asia, you know what I mean. Sorry for bad English. Gangster rap and things like boys in the hood glorifying gang activity. I've lived in the hood and gang activity should not be glorified. Most people in gangs are either doing it because it's all they know, they're looking for camaraderie, they have nowhere else to go, or a mix of these. I've watched people, including a 17-year-old kid, throw away their lives over some stupid shit that ends up not mattering in the end. I've seen people get shot. I know a man who went to jail as a minor and got out in his 30s just because he made one wrong decision. I'm not saying we should ignore it, but at least stop normalizing it. Lawns. Not joking here. The over-manicured American land quite literally needs to die. Lawn care accounts for more water usage than any other crop in America. They are our country's most irrigated crop, and yet, they are useless. While they can sequester carbon, they are quite inefficient at doing so. Not only do they ruin green space by creating a sterile monoculture void of biodiversity, they waste one of our most precious natural resources for trivial and arbitrary status symbols. A better alternative would be to let our lawns grow naturally and introduce local wildflowers to those landscapes. This will help pollinators and make this natural green space actually useful, not harmful. The fact that life hacks and quick fixes are so readily accepted. I watched a video that stated, putting an onion in your sock helps with certain foot problems, or putting random foods, like butter or toothpaste, into open wounds heals them. I feel like people roll their eyes at medieval smoke medicine, but think this makes sense to idiotic internet fixes.